Imagine if you went from feeling fine every day to feeling amazing. How would your life be different? Everyone has the ability to feel amazing again and again. You just need the right tools to get there. If you're ready to feel amazing, stick around. Now, here's the host of the I'm Not Fine show with functional nutrition coach Lizzie Ens.
Welcome, everyone. That is me, Lizzie Ens, functional nutrition practitioner, author, speaker on the I'm Not Fine show on the Inspired Choices Network. Listen, if you are new here and you have not joined us in the app yet, I want to encourage you to go to either your Google phone or your Apple phone and download the app Inspired Choices Network, because you can go in there and find all the good shows in there, but you can find I'm Not Fine in there, follow along, and you can watch us live, come meet us in the chat room and ask questions while we're doing this live. If not, you can also find all the pre-recorded stuff or the recorded episodes after the show in there as well. So today's show, we're going to be talking about the basics of nutrition, one-on-one basics. What should it look like? What the difference can be between one person and the next, and how simple it can be. And I may even put in some tips and tricks of things that I learned when I was growing up, because I grew up Amish, and I want to remind you that my book, Escaping My Reflection, the link, lizzieens.com, is in the show notes, and you can go grab that book if you want to learn more about what it's like to grow up Amish. And I actually talk a little bit about some of the day-to-day things that we did when I was growing up. So go grab that book. Okay, next reminder real quick. On Monday, June 5th, which is actually in a few days. So if you're catching this show before then, I start my next 12-week group coaching program, and I limit this program to 10 women. And it's already over halfway full, so I have a few spots left. And if you're listening to this now and it's not June 5th yet, you can still get in if you want to. So book a spot with me. Let's have a conversation and see if that is a good fit, because this is a 12-week group program where I will dive deep on your gut health, your thyroid, your hormones, and help you figure out what your diet and nutrition and exercise plan should look like. And we really focus on the root cause of what is going on with why you're feeling the way that you are, and how we can get you having more energy, having better sleep, losing the weight and keeping it off, reducing the bloat, all the things that we all want. And so many of those things women are struggling with because they're going to the doctor and they're not getting help. They're not getting answers. Actually, real quick, I had a conversation with someone a couple of days ago, and she was telling me how she's spent all this money on trying to figure out like what's going on with her body. So she went to a naturopath, and now listen, I love naturopath. I think they're amazing at what they do, and they bring a lot of healing and value in for the people and the clients that they see. But I've seen a naturopath before, and I still work with a naturopath on occasion when I want to. But one of the things that I noticed when I was seeing my naturopath is I was already educated on a lot of the things. I just wanted someone else to come in and look at things from an outside in view, and also teach me some things that maybe I hadn't even thought about, or sometimes you just need someone else's perspective. But what I realized at that moment in time is if I did not have the education piece behind what I already knew, then it would be very difficult for me to go spend that amount of money, look at labs, be told like, hey, this is what's going on with your body. You should try this diet, go on these supplements. Now you go on your merry way. And I realized that there's a huge gap there. And that's where I come in. So this girl was telling me how she spent thousands of dollars on a naturopath and it helped her some, but then she also went on all these supplements and that helped her some as well. However, she didn't have the accountability. She didn't have the help ongoing. So I was explaining to her that the difference between working with someone like me that's a coach and a mentor that can help you along the way for a period of time to figure it out, that is the difference. That's the difference between working with a coach and someone that is going to kind of hold your hand and give you step-by-step process every single week and daily as well. That's the difference between working with someone like me that is a coach and has a program that you're going to go through for a period of time to help you create a lifestyle, a sustainable, livable lifestyle, and figure out what your body is needing on an ongoing process, versus going to someone and spending hundreds or thousands of dollars getting labs done, and they tell you what you should be doing, but then beyond that appointment, there's no contact until you go back and you spend another few hundred or $1,000 to figure out what else is going on. So when you see a naturopath or a doctor, you can get answers, but it is the aftercare that is a huge missing piece. And that is what I provide. That is why I have a 12-week program that's minimum that I want, the amount of time that I want to work with you. And I have some people that come to me and say, hey, can I just do labs? And I say, you can, but in my professional opinion, you're going to kind of waste your money again. You might get some answers, but are you really going to go do what you need to do after we get the answers of the labs? If they're a self-motivated person and they get it and they have the knowledge behind it, absolutely. But if they're not, then I don't encourage it, because it's going to be more frustrating. So anyway, long story short, that is my 12-week program. I do have my one-on-one program as well, but the group program is just really fun because it's a community atmosphere. So come check us out, come join us. It's not big, just 10 women, but amazing, amazing experience. And I always see such amazing results when we are in a community atmosphere, a community aspect of things. So that's what's coming up. I know that was kind of a long answer on there, but I wanted to explain the difference between that and, you know, seeing doctors and why so many women are so frustrated. And they're saying like, you're fine, but you're not fine. And we are on the I'm Not Fine show, and we're going to get real here. We're going to talk about all of the things. So let's get into today's episode, basic nutrition one-on-one. This is something that I teach all of my clients, and I tell them this is something that we should learn this when we're in high school. Like there should be a curriculum in high school that the kids get to learn. It's very basic, but it's understanding what it is that is nutrition. What does a balanced meal look like? Why is protein important? Why are carbohydrates important? Why are fats important? What's the purpose of those? So if you really think back to like before we had all the diets, the dieting noise, if you really think back to our ancestors, and we don't live in those times anymore because we live in a time of convenience, grab and go, protein shakes, protein bars, anything out of a bag, instead of, hey, maybe we want to have an apple, maybe we want to have a banana. That's just as convenient, but it's not as sexy, right? So we make it seem like it's not as convenient, but to me, it is, because I've trained myself and I understand the value behind it. But our ancestors way back, before we had all the highly processed foods and the convenience of the world that we live in now, they lived off the land, and they had the fruits and the vegetables and the proteins and the cheese and the bread and all of those things, but they kept it super simple. And they also worked really hard, like physical jobs. So that is a difference as well. But understanding the basics of nutrition is really, really hard to do that when you are looking for the next quick diet, the next quick fix, the next promising flash diet that's going to get you to lose 50 pounds, in 2 months, 3 months, which is kind of unreasonable. It's doable. But what you want to ask yourself is, do I want to do this for the rest of my life? Is this sustainable? Because the way that you lose the weight is the way that you want to maintain your weight. So if you're doing an extreme diet and you're like, I know that I'm not going to be doing this for the rest of my life or the next year or 2 years or 3 years, and it feels really extreme and hard, then you should ask yourself a really hard question. Is this the right thing for me? Now, sometimes there are medical reasons to go on a specific diet. So for example, if someone has diabetes, yes, their diet is going to look differently. And it needs to look differently. Very, very important. But you can reverse those types of things by changing and going through the healing phase. If someone has really high candida levels, like I did, have really high candida levels for a period of time, my diet looked really different because I needed to go through the healing and the detoxing phase of that diet and to allow my body to heal. So if you have certain medical things going on, yes, absolutely, it's going to look differently. But we're going to be talking about the basics of all of this today. So what are the basics of nutrition? Well, if you want to really simplify it and keep it incredibly simple, we're going to be diving deep into carbohydrates, diving deep into protein, and diving deep into fat and even fiber and the purpose of those. Because when you focus on these 4 things and you're primarily getting these things balanced and you do it in a sustainable, non-restrictive, non-dieting kind of way, you're giving your body the nutrients that it needs, the variety of nutrients that it needs. And you're allowing your body to heal, and you're allowing your body to have energy and to have good sleep. Because one of the things that will actually affect your sleep is if you don't eat enough protein. So if you're consistently not eating enough protein, your cortisol is going to get affected, and you may find yourself waking up in the middle of the night and not being able to go back to sleep. And that's because your protein satiates you and keeps your blood sugar stabilized. So when you're not having enough protein, the blood sugars will drop too low, and now cortisol will get kicked in. And that happens in the middle of the night because cortisol is your fight or flight. So your body's always trying to be in homeostasis. It's trying to bring things into homeostasis. That's its job. But when blood sugar drops too low, guess what happens? Cortisol shoots up. And if you find yourself waking up in the middle of the night, 2, 3 a.m., and you're wired and you can't go back to sleep for an hour or so, one of the things to check in with yourself is, am I eating enough protein? And the chances are pretty high that you're not, but you never know. I've had clients that simply bumped up their protein and their sleeping patterns completely changed and they were able to stay asleep all night. So we're going to go to our first break here, but when we come back, I'm going to be diving into each individual macro a little bit more, why it's important, how it serves your body, and why you need to be making sure that you're getting all of these into your diet every single day. So don't go anywhere, come back because we're going to have some fun with that. I'm going to give you some very, very simple things to think about and apply. This is Lizzie Ens on the I'm Not Fine show on the Inspired Choices Network. We'll be right back.
We often get used to just feeling fine instead of reaching to feel excellent or even good. Wellness is about feeling good, and that is a journey of continually coming back to what is nourishing and healing for us. Your body is functional and ever-changing, like a pendulum swinging. We must learn how to move with our bodies. Tuning into I'm Not Fine with functional nutrition coach Lizzie Ens will provide you with simple but effective tools that you can use right away, so you can go from feeling just fine to feeling amazing. Listen for I'm Not Fine on Fridays at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. Central Time, 11 a.m. Mountain Time, and 10 a.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email become a host at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is I'm Not Fine with Lizzie Ens. To participate in the program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also send an email to Lizzie at undietyourself.live. Now back to the program.
Welcome back, everyone. My name is Lizzie Ens, and I am the host of the I'm Not Fine show here on the Inspired Choices Network. So before we went to break, we were talking a little bit about the different types of macros and the basics of nutrition. And today's episode is all about how to simplify things, the basic nutrition one-on-one. And so what I want to do now is dive deep into each individual macro that's important for our health. And we're going to start with carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are, have you ever said oh my gosh, I'm such a carboholic, and you just can't stop eating them. You crave them all the time. The bread, the cookies, the pasta, it's like they're just calling your name. And a lot of times when this happens, it's not necessarily that your body's actually wanting or needing the carbs, but there's a balance that's off between the protein and the carbs and the fat. And sometimes we're just not eating the right types of carbs either, because we have our simple carbs and then we have our complex carbs, which are much more serving for our body. So carbohydrates are like that, like that kindling that you put on the fire to start a fire. You need something to ignite it. That's your carbohydrates. They come in and they burn quickly. You can ignite it quickly for energy. So when you're tired and, let's say you didn't sleep well last night and you woke up and you're tired and you're just sleep deprived going through the day, your body's probably going to be like, yeah, I need some carbohydrates. When I started realizing this, I started paying attention. So there was a time that I was really, really tired. And I was like, man, I just want to go eat some French fries or a donut. And I was like, I never crave those things. So I checked in with myself and I realized that it was because I was tired and my body's like, give me something. I need energy. I need something that's going to fuel me and give me a quick burning thing, something that ignites quickly. That's your carbohydrates. So that's, if you find yourself tired all the time, yeah, you're probably going to crave those carbohydrates. But there's also a missing piece to that, because we'll get into the protein part of it as well and why that's so important. But that is kind of like the beast behind all of this. the protein, which I'm excited to dive into. But carbohydrates are still very, very important. They're equally as important as your proteins and your fat. And that's why you want to keep it balanced and you want to keep it simple. And I don't know that you can necessarily ever be like, oh my gosh, like everything's just balanced and I just know like exactly what my body needs and what that balance looks like. Is there really a balance though? It's about tuning into what is your body telling you that it needs. That's what it's really about, because today is going to look differently than tomorrow, depending on what's going on in your life. So if you have a lot more stress or you're going through your menstrual cycle, your cravings or how your body's feeling and what it's needing is going to look differently. So we don't want to get so stuck on one balanced plate where it's like, that's all we're doing all the time. No, we need variety, and we need to be able to swing with that pendulum that we talk about on here, because that's what wellness is listening and tuning in, swinging with that pendulum, because what worked 10 years ago, 5 years ago is not going to work today or tomorrow or in 10 years, because our body changes over time. So when you think about the carbohydrates, they're very, very important for your liver support. They're the glycogen levels in your body. They're very supportive for your thyroid, your cholesterol, like all of it is connected. And they're very, very important for your hormones. Now we want, like men specifically can get away with less carbs more often than women. And here's why. Because women have the lovely menstrual cycle. And so typically like that week leading up to our cycle starting, we tend to crave a little bit more carbs. And a lot of women are like, this is when I crave my chocolate. This is when I crave my donuts. This is when I just want to like eat everything. And we've become sort of like a society of like, this is normal and this is just what it is. And you just kind of like, let things go. And you just feel like that's just all normal. Well, it's actually your body giving you signs and signals that there's something missing. There's something off balance. So when we're leading up to that cycle, the menstrual cycle starting, and you find yourself a little bit more hungry or craving those carbohydrates, honor it. Don't ignore it. But what you want to think about is maybe you have more potato, maybe you have more rice, maybe you have more, maybe you have some pasta that's like lentil pasta or something like that. So you're bringing in the complex carbs that are going to be a lot more satisfying than the simple carbs, like your sugars and your highly processed foods and stuff like that. So when you bring in the complex, and let's talk about the complex and the simple carbs a little bit. So when we talk about complex carbs, a lot of people get kind of like confused about like what's a complex carb and what's a simple carb. So when you think of simple carbs, you want to think about simple sugars like, cane sugar and highly processed foods. So like simple carbs would be like your cookies, your cakes, your donuts, the things that aren't super nutrient dense, and they've been processed. So they're either lightly processed or highly processed or moderately processed. There's really a difference, because when you think about processed, there's lots of healthy processed foods too. So like when I was growing up, we canned and preserved our own fruits and vegetables in the summer. And we put a lot of sugar in the fruits, but that's still processing it. You're preserving the food. You're processing it in a way so that it keeps longer because it's not fresh anymore. So that would be a term of like lightly processed. Highly processed is like typically the stuff that's in the bags and the grab and go kind of stuff that's a lot more processed. So those are like your simple carbs. Now, complex carbs, you want to think about those in the whole form of a food. So complex carb would be like a sweet potato, a white potato. Your vegetables are complex carbs as well. Your fresh fruits are complex carbs. So like your bananas and your oranges and your berries, all of those things like in a whole food form, those are your complex carbs. Your rice, your quinoa, those types of things, those are your complex carbs. So when you're working on getting carbs in and making sure that you're getting enough carbs in, that's sort of the majority of where you want to see it come from, is those complex carbs. You can have, you can obviously have some simple carbs come in here and there as well, but for overall like a feel good body and your energy and sustainability, the complex carbs are a much, much better choice, and they're going to serve your digestive system better, and they're going to serve your thyroid and your hormones better, all of those things. So complex carbs all the way. Make sure you're getting those. And we can talk about the percentages of each individual macros as well. And that can look different for each person. But let's just say I were to sit down with you and I looked at where your calories are at, and I said, hey, I want you to be at 1,800 calories a day, and we're going to split your macros like this. The chances are you're going to be at 25 to 30% protein, 40 to 45% carbs, and then 30% fat. That's a pretty like standard, sustainable, moderate way to balance things and make sure that your body's getting what it needs. That's really, really what you want. And then it doesn't feel like you're depriving yourself, but it just does take some time to adjust and figure out like what that looks like. So let's talk about protein. Protein is the beast. This bad boy is the driver behind so many things. And most women are not getting enough protein. And I'm not sure why that is, other than years ago, we were taught that protein will make us bulky. So I just want to be very, very clear here. Protein will not make you bulky. Only a surplus of calories and lifting weights really, really heavy is going to make you bulky. So if you ever look at like CrossFit women, they're usually a lot more muscular. And that's because they lift all the time and they lift really, really heavy, but they're also eating a ton. So they're able to break down that muscle during the workouts, because that's what you do. You break down the muscles, and then they go and eat and they feed the muscles enough calories in order to get the muscles to grow and get stronger. So it's really, really hard to get stronger in your workouts and in the gym if you're not eating enough. So you want to make sure that you're not under eating as well for too long periods of time in that calorie deficit. So protein is going to help with your metabolism. It's going to satiate you. It also supports your digestive system, your hormones and your thyroid, your satiety, your sleep. It is so, so, so important to make sure that you're getting enough protein. And what are some good protein sources? If you eat meat, get your protein from your meat and your eggs, and you can get protein from yogurt. You can get protein from like soy things like edamame. I'm not a huge fan of like processed soy, but edamame, and then your legumes and your beans, those are going to have protein in there. So you just get really good at figuring out, hey, how much protein do I need in a meal? 20 to 30 grams in a meal. Well, let's just say, your goal was 120 grams of protein in a day. If you have 30 grams of protein for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that's 90. And now you have another 30 left for your snacks. So you get like 2 snacks 15 grams in the snacks, and you're at 120 grams of protein. So don't be afraid to make sure that you're getting that protein. And every single client that I work with, and we work on that protein, and that's like goal number one, is for us to get that protein in. And when we do that, they immediately start feeling better, because protein is like that damp log. So you have the carbs that fire really, really quickly, but then the protein is kind of like that damp log where it comes in and it takes a while for it to ignite. It just takes longer. And so once it ignites and once it's burning, it has a slow burn. So that's why your satiety is taken care of when you make sure that you have enough protein, because it's burning for a much longer period of time. So it gives you that energy, because think of food as energy for your body. So that's your protein. All right, we're going to go to our next break. When we come back from that break, we're going to be talking about our fats and our fiber and why those are so important. So make sure that you come back here and keep listening, because we're going to have some more really, really good information for you that you're going to want to jot down and remember, so because you can apply those steps at home right away. So don't go anywhere. I'm Lizzie Ens on the I'm Not Fine show.
We often get used to just feeling fine instead of reaching to feel excellent or even good. Wellness is about feeling good, and that is a journey of continually coming back to what is nourishing and healing for us. Your body is functional and ever-changing, like a pendulum swinging. We must learn how to move with our bodies. Tuning into I'm Not Fine with functional nutrition coach Lizzie Ens will provide you with simple but effective tools that you can use right away, so you can go from feeling just fine to feeling amazing. Listen for I'm Not Fine on Fridays at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. Central Time, 11 a.m. Mountain Time, and 10 a.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is I'm Not Fine with Lizzie Ens. To participate in the program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also send an email to Lizzie at undietyourself.live. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, everyone. My name is Lizzie Ens, and I am the host of the I'm Not Fine show on the Inspired Choices Network. Real quick, we are just a few days away from my next group coaching program, and I just want to send you a quick reminder that you can still join that if you want to. If you're listening to this before June 5th, when we start and we launch that, you can still join us. So we're literally like 3 days away. So we still have a couple spots left for that. I limit it to 10 women, but if you're listening to it before then and you want to join and come be part of this community and figure out what's going on with your health, then book a call with me with the link in the show notes, or reach out to me on social media. Lizzie Ens_wellness on Instagram is my main hub. That's where I hang out. You can also message me on Facebook, Lizzie Ens, but my Instagram is much more active. So find me on there. And then also don't forget to grab a copy of my book, Escaping My Reflection, because next week, the show that I'm doing next week is gonna be amazing. It is going to be what the Amish culture taught me and how I brought a lot of what I learned while I was there to what I do now. So that's going to be a really, really fun episode. So you're going to want to come back to that one. All right. We're going to continue on with our macros, our basic nutrition one-on-one. Before we went to break, we talked about carbohydrates, and I gave you a deep dive on those. And then we talked about protein, and I gave you a deep dive on those and why those are so important for a healthy, sustainable lifestyle, and why you need to make sure that you're getting those in a balanced way on a daily basis. And now we're going to talk about fat. So fat is also one of my all-time favorite ones, because fat is, it also, just like protein, it satiates you and helps keep you full. But think of fat as thermogenesis. So it helps keep your body warm. It helps with your organs. So if you have, let's just say, for example, like if you have really, really low body fat, you're probably going to be the type of person that's more cold because you don't have as much body fat on your body. Like I remember when I was, there was a point in time when I was at like 14% body fat, maybe 12%. And that's really low for a woman, not very healthy for hormones. We'll talk about that. But it just sort of happened. I wasn't necessarily trying. It just sort of like happened. And, but I was cold a lot when I was that low in body fat, because you don't have a lot of body fat on you. And so that's one thing that fat does, is it comes in and it helps with the health of your organs and your thermogenesis of the body and keeping you warm. But it is very, very, very important for your brain and your gut, but very specifically for your brain. And here's why. Did you know that your brain is made up of 60% of your brain is made up of fat cells? So if you were to like touch your brain, it would be squishy because it's fat cells. And so think about this, like if you hit your head and your brain has fat cells, it probably like moves around a little bit because it's squishy. I don't know, I've never seen that, but if you really think about it, it helps you when you hit your head. So a lot of times when people don't eat enough fat, they'll also find themselves in brain fog. And that's part of the reason is because you need healthy fats in your diet in order to support your brain. Very, very, very important. So that's one side of the fat. The other part is you need healthy fats for your gut health as well. Really, really important, because the gut is your second brain. This is like, if you're not taking care of your gut, you're not taking care of your brain. And fat is part of that. And that is why eating fish or taking like a fish oil, like a really, really good fish oil, that is why you can take those things and it'll help reduce inflammation, but it will also help your brain fog, because you need that healthy fat, those omega-3 fatty acids. And you're going to get those fats from lots of foods. It's very easy to go over your fat when you're doing it right. So if you're focusing on healthy fats, I love my healthy fats. So avocado oil, butter, ghee. I just made my own homemade butter again. And it is so good, because where I was growing up, we made butter all the time with fresh raw cream. And I thought to myself, why am I not making my own butter? I can make my own butter. So I got myself some cream and I made my own butter. And man, oh man, it's nostalgic, because you get to kind of go back, time travel back into like where I grew up. And obviously I made it in a different way, because the butter that we made in a wooden butter churn, and we had to like turn it and crank it for sometimes a very long time. And here I'm using like electricity to make my butter. So anyway, it's really, really good. But butter, oil, so like one of the things that you want to be really, really careful with is certain types of oils. So obviously you cook with oils, right? So you're going to do, if you're using like avocado, ghee, butter, coconut, those types of oils for cooking, you're using better types of oils. You want to avoid oils like vegetable oil, corn oil, canola oil. Those are very highly inflammatory oils, and they can cause a lot of gut inflammation, brain inflammation, like those types of things, inflammation in your body. And they're just overall not great for you. And then when it comes to olive oil, a lot of people like to cook with olive oil, but olive oil, unless it is actually made for the high heat, you shouldn't be using olive oil on such high heat. So olive oil is more for like your dressings and stuff like that. So try to keep the olive oil for the low end of things, like low end of cooking or for the cold stuff. And then use the other oils for your high heat cooking. And then you're going to get fats, obviously, from your meats. So if you're eating fish, you're going to get fat. And there's almost always going to be fat in any meat, unless you're getting like really, really lean, like chicken breast doesn't have a lot of fat, or like really lean beef, that's not going to have a lot of fat. But in general, you're going to get good fats from those types of things like meats. And then obviously like your nuts and your seeds are going to have fat as well. So you can get really good healthy fats there. And then your dairy products and your yogurts and stuff like that, they're going to have fats too. But one of the things with fat is fat has 3 times the calories per gram versus the carbs and the proteins. So carbs have 3 grams per calorie, and protein has 3 grams per calorie, but fat has 9 grams of fat per calorie. Am I saying that right? 9 grams. I think I have it mixed. I think I have it flipped. So it's 9 calories per gram. Yeah, 9 calories per gram for fat, 3 calories per gram for protein, 3 calories per gram for carbohydrates. So it's very, very easy to quickly have reached your fat goal if you're not careful. So it's all about portions, how you're going to portion things out and making sure that you have things in moderation. So instead of having 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, which is going to give you 200 calories, maybe you have 1 tablespoon of peanut butter, and that just cuts down on the calories and the fat count. So that's sort of how you want to think of it there. And obviously there's, with each macro, each individual macro here, you're going to have other benefits to it as well. So just keep that in mind. But if you want to think about how you want to, remember what I said about balancing things and where you want to start. So if you want to think about percentages and you really want to dive into like how you should balance it, think about, your calorie count, where you want to be, and then the percentages, 25 to 30% protein, depending on where you're starting, and then 30% fat, and then 40 to 40% carbohydrates. And that's where you have that balanced, sustainable approach. And that's always my recommendation. Now, if you're someone that is starting out with, hey, you're only eating like 40 grams of protein a day and you really should be at like 100 or higher, then it's going to be really, really hard for you to go from 40 grams straight up to 100. So we like to do it gradual and take it like a step-by-step process. So maybe one week you're going to say, hey, my goal is 60 grams. And if you do really well with that week, then the next week you can bump it to 75, and you just bump it up slowly instead of going from 40 to 100. That's really, really difficult to do. And it's also overwhelming, and we want to keep things simple and basic on here. So we are going to go on our last break here. But when we come back, I'm going to dive a little bit into fiber and then give you some more simple strategic steps that you can take to start applying right away. So don't go anywhere. We're going to come right back and continue this conversation. I'm Lizzie Ens on I'm Not Fine.
We often get used to just feeling fine instead of reaching to feel excellent or even good. Wellness is about feeling good, and that is a journey of continually coming back to what is nourishing and healing for us. Your body is functional and ever-changing, like a pendulum swinging. We must learn how to move with our bodies. Tuning into I'm Not Fine with functional nutrition coach Lizzie Ens will provide you with simple but effective tools that you can use right away, so you can go from feeling just fine to feeling amazing. Listen for I'm Not Fine on Fridays at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. Central Time, 11 a.m. Mountain Time, and 10 a.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. This is I'm Not Fine with Lizzie Ens. To participate in the program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also send an email to Lizzie at undietyourself.live. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, everyone. We are on the last stretch of this show, and we're going to dive right into it so we can finish strong and give you some very strategic steps. Remember, next week, we're going to come back here in this chat room and live, and we're going to talk about what the Amish culture taught me and how I brought that into my world now and sort of like bridging the gap there. So I'm going to teach you some things about the Amish people next week. So that's going to be a really fun one. Don't forget to grab a copy of my book on lizzieens.com, Escaping My Reflection. And you can also email me at lizzie@undietyourself.live for any questions that you have, or if you want to have a conversation with me. All right, so we're going to dive into this and finish strong. We were talking about the importance of fat right before we went to break. And I want to talk a little bit about fiber now and why that's so important. Fiber is also equally as important as all these other three components here. And it's something that's not talked about enough because it's not a main focus. But fiber is what helps you move things through your body. So think of fiber as like the tool that helps your body be able to move food through the body. Because it absorbs things together and creates, the waste, and then you're able to eliminate. So if you're not getting enough fiber, then the chances of you eliminating the way that you should on a daily basis, we had a poop episode a few weeks ago, and we talked about that. But that is part of fiber's job, is to have adequate amounts of that, so that you can move things along and move things through the body. And a lot of people are not having enough of that. Actually, the average American gets about 8 grams of fiber a day, but the minimum RDA for fiber is 25 grams a day. So I always teach my clients like 25 to 30 grams a day should be their goal. And for some people, that's really, really hard. From Whole Foods. So you can have your carbs, fats, and proteins all from all these other types of food, and you can hit those numbers. But if you don't have fiber, you're still missing some. So I had a client a few months ago that was doing amazing with her nutrition, and I said, hey, we're doing really, really good with the macros, with the carbs, fats, and proteins, and she kept it super simple. But I said, now we want to work on fiber, and we want to make sure that you're getting enough fiber. So she just went at it. She went at it and she worked on her fiber. And after a couple of weeks, she said, oh, wow, like I realized that in order for me to get to my fiber goal for the day is I need to eat whole foods. I said, bingo, bingo, bingo. You need whole foods to get to your fiber goals. So you want to think about your fruits and your vegetables and your seeds and your nuts and legumes and beans. Like if you ever want to like get to your fiber goal, eat a cup of beans and you're going to get close to your fiber goal very quickly for that day. So that's where you want to make sure that you're getting fiber, because fiber is really, really important for your cholesterol. It's really, really important for your digestion, but cholesterol as well, because cholesterol is the backbone to many of our hormones and our thyroid. And fiber helps with your cholesterol levels. So we make new cholesterol every single day. But if we're not getting rid of the cholesterol that we don't need anymore, that is why our cholesterol levels can rise, because we're not disposing of it. And fiber is part of that job. Fiber's job is to be there and get rid of excess cholesterol, get rid of excess waste, all of those things. So that's why it's really important for you to make sure that you have adequate amounts of fiber. So I just named off some things that you need to make sure that you have, which is your fruits and vegetables, your legumes, your seeds, all of those things. So make sure that you get those in. Okay, so how do we balance that? How do we balance all of those things? Focus on protein first. It's not about getting it perfect. If anybody tries to like be perfect with all of them at one time, make sure that you're not doing that. I tell them, hey, you need to back it up, and we're just going to make sure that we get to our protein goal first. So instead of getting overwhelmed, this is a lot of information, but instead of getting overwhelmed with all of the things at one time, start with protein. Do protein first and get really good at that protein. That makes a massive difference. And sometimes just focusing on the protein is what actually helps you balance out the rest. So you focus on the protein, get really good at that, and then you start working on the carbs and the fats after a while. You're going to be simultaneously doing it, but you're not working on perfection. You're working on improvement. So that's what you want to think about when you're doing this. So then once you are really good at the protein, then you work on the carbs and the fats. You get those nice balanced out, and then you can focus on the fiber as well. And hopefully during that time, you worked on the fiber some because you're working on more whole foods. So naturally you should start getting more fiber. But if you're not focusing on getting your nutrients and your food from whole foods, then your fiber is probably going to be low. Now, one last thing that I want to say about fiber is if you are really, really low in fiber and you're starting to bring it in and up it, you want to go slow. Because if you go slow, your body is not always able to like digest it and handle it, your gut, depending on what's going on with your gut. So go slow. And then you have to make sure that you drink lots of water, like lots and lots of water. Because if you bring in too much fiber and you're not having enough water, it can constipate you. So that wraps up today's show of Basic Nutrition One-on-One. I'm so thankful that you guys were here and hung out with me. Please leave a review in the show, and we'll see you next week on the I'm Not Fine show.
Thank you for listening to the I'm Not Fine show. Lizzie Ens returns Fridays at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. Central Time, 11 a.m. Mountain Time, and 10 a.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. Until then, have the best week of your life by making choices that take you from feeling fine to feeling amazing.